Smoke hung heavy in the air, dense, metallic, tasting of ozone and burnt alloy. The battle had ended hours ago, but the ship still trembled as if it hadn't yet accepted survival. The Verith Dominion's flagship, the Sovereign Blade, drifted through the wreckage of defeated fleets. Its hull was scarred, its deck slick with coolant and blood. In the center of her private chamber, Queen Scythra stood before the remains of her sacred armor. Once radiant with royal energy, it now looked like a pile of molten grief. Her long, luminescent ears twitched at every hiss of the damaged life support vents. Anger simmered beneath her elegant posture. The armor wasn't just metal, it was her inheritance, her command, her identity. Every plate was forged from the bones of fallen ancestors. Every circuit sang with her lineage. And now, the divine artifact that made her a living symbol of her empire was reduced to junk. Her claws flexed. "Bring me the engineers," she ordered, her voice sharp enough to cut steel. Within minutes, a dozen alien technicians filed in, trembling. They bowed so low their head crests brushed the floor. "Why, Your Radiance, we did everything possible." The plasma breach. Silence. Her tail flicked once, a gesture that in Verith culture was both royal and extremely dangerous. "You did not do enough. Leave before I test how well your exoskeletons hold under vacuum." They scrambled out. The chamber fell silent again except for the hum of failing lights. Scythra stared at the shattered armor, her fury wrapping around her like a cloak. Then she froze. Something was different. The armor wasn't shattered anymore. She blinked once. Twice. The jagged cracks were gone. The molten edges now gleamed smooth. The golden inlays shimmered faintly, humming with a resonance that wasn't Verith design. Someone had fixed it. Her nostrils flared. She reached out, her fingertips brushing the surface. The alloy purred to her touch, alive again. Perfectly restored. But not the same. It felt lighter, more responsive, almost as if it breathed. Her voice cut through the silence like a plasma blade. "Who touched this?" No answer. The comms remained quiet. Even the ship's AI hesitated to speak. "Who fixed my armor?" The sound rolled through the halls, shaking panels loose and freezing crew members in their tracks. Somewhere in the engineering bay, a wrench clattered to the floor. A small, distinctly human voice muttered, "Well, that's my cue to die early." Moments later, the chamber doors hissed open. Two towering Verith guards stepped aside, revealing a short figure in a grease-stained jumpsuit, clutching a toolkit like a lifeline. His name tag, faded and scratched, still read E. Marin, Mechanical Systems Technician, Terran Fleet. Eli Marin cleared his throat, trying not to stare at the 9-foot-tall alien queen glaring down at him like he'd just insulted her ancestors, which, technically, he had by existing near her armor. He began, "Hi. So, funny story." Her tail lashed. "You dare approach unbidden?" Eli blinked. "I mean, technically, you bellowed loud enough to count as an invitation." There was a pause. A dangerous one. One of the guards actually inhaled sharply through its gills. Scythra tilted her head, eyes narrowing like twin blades of violet fire. "You fixed this?" "Yes, ma'am." "Well, fixed might be an overstatement. I recalibrated the structural harmonics, fused the microfractures, realigned your power lattice, basic maintenance, really." "Basic?" Her voice dripped with disbelief. "That armor has resisted 10,000 years of war. No one has ever dared." "Yeah, that's probably why it kept breaking," Eli interrupted before his survival instincts caught up. He coughed. "I mean, respectfully." A flicker passed through her expression, half outrage, half intrigue. No one interrupted a queen. But this human didn't seem to know that. Or maybe he didn't care. "Why?" she demanded. Eli scratched the back of his neck. Because it was broken. And I fix things. That's kind of my whole job description. Her gaze dropped to the armor again. The humming resonance pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. You used alien techniques. Human technology. He nodded. I improvised. Your systems are impressive, but your phase conduits were misaligned. Honestly, whoever built this didn't understand thermal regulation. No offense. You imply my ancestors lacked engineering skill. Well, they're not around to defend themselves, so, maybe a little offense. One of the guards stifled what sounded suspiciously like a snort. Sarithra's ears flared, glowing faintly. That glow was not anger, it was something closer to astonishment. She stepped closer until Eli could see his own nervous reflection in her armor's mirrored surface. Tell me, human, she murmured, do you know what you touched? Eli glanced at the armor, then back at her. Something heavy, loud, and very important to you. Oh, and probably cursed. It gave me static shocks like it hated me personally. That armor, as you call it, is bound to my essence. To repair it without permission is blasphemy punishable by death. Right, Eli said slowly. So, you're welcome. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then, to everyone's horror, the Queen laughed. It wasn't loud, more a low, incredulous sound that vibrated the air. You are either fearless or ignorant. Eli shrugged. Little of both. Helps me get through Mondays. Her expression softened just enough to confuse everyone in the room. You will remain here. I would understand this, human method. Perhaps before I decide whether to vaporize you. Eli blinked. Great. A royal death sentence with a research phase. Living the dream. As the guards escorted him to his new quarters, luxurious by prisoner standards, terrifying by any other, Sarithra turned back to her armor. The human's touch had changed it, yes. But more than that, it had changed her. For the first time in cycles, she felt something unfamiliar creeping beneath her pride. Curiosity. And perhaps, just barely, amusement. The hum of the Sovereign Blade's engines was a constant background lullaby, one that Eli Marin had begun to associate with being perpetually one wrong word away from execution. He sat cross-legged on the metallic floor of the alien workshop, a screwdriver between his fingers, staring at a floating drone that refused to cooperate. It was an orb-shaped maintenance unit, about the size of a basketball, and about as intelligent. Okay, R6, Eli muttered, tapping the orb's plating, you're supposed to stabilize the magnetic coils, not flirt with the power core. We talked about this. The drone emitted a defiant beep. Oh, don't you sass me, Eli grumbled. You blew a fuse last time and nearly vaporized my eyebrows. Again. He was still talking to the machine when the door hissed open behind him. Two guards entered, their armor gleaming obsidian, eyes unblinking. Between them glided Queen Sarithra herself, her presence a gravitational event that made the air feel thinner. She wasn't wearing her sacred armor today. Instead, a form-fitting battle suit of woven light clung to her tall frame, its texture shifting like liquid glass. Her long ears were faintly luminescent, trailing graceful arcs of blue-white glow as she moved. Eli scrambled to his feet and instinctively wiped his hands on his already filthy jumpsuit. Your Majesty. I wasn't talking to myself. I was, interrogating the equipment. Tough suspect. Her gaze slid past him to the floating orb, which now tried to act innocent by powering down its lights. You communicate with machines as though they are sentient, she said, voice cool and melodic. They are, Eli said. Just really bad at conversation. For a heartbeat, she looked like she was trying not to smile. Then her composure returned, regal and unreadable. You will explain the methods you used to restore my armor, she said. I must know how you achieved what my empire's finest artisans could not. Eli rubbed the back of his neck. It's complicated. I command a dominion that spans 40 systems, she said. I believe I can follow your explanation. Okay, he said, but you're gonna hate it. He pointed at a schematic projected on the wall, a holographic rendering of her armor. You've got resonance circuits here, here, and here. They're designed to sync with your bioelectric field, right? She inclined her head slightly. Except, Eli continued, you've been running the energy flow at about 0.3 gigacycles too high. That's fine in open combat, but it overheats the regulator nodes. Eventually, they burn out. What I did was reroute the feedback through a carbon-based lattice that adapts dynamically. Her brow furrowed. You altered divine design with carbon. Technically, graphite infused with human nanogel, Eli said, trying not to sound too proud. Flexible, self-repairing, temperature adaptive. It doesn't just hold your power, it dances with it. Dances, she repeated, as though tasting the word. A human term. It's the best kind, he said. Besides, it beats explaining thermodynamic compensation fields to someone who probably thinks a torque wrench is an insult. Her ears twitched. I do not know this, torque wrench. Should I be offended? Depends on how much you like being compared to a stubborn bolt. The guards tensed, clearly expecting her to incinerate him. But instead, the queen emitted a sound, soft, low, unmistakably a laugh. It was quick, nearly hidden behind her hand, but Eli caught it. Remarkable, she murmured, more to herself than to him. A human who speaks boldly in the face of death. Mostly nerves, Eli said. And poor life choices. The queen paced slowly around the workshop, her gaze moving over the disassembled alien machinery. You fix things without fear, she said. Even those sacred to others. Do you not worry that your ignorance will destroy what you touch? Eli gave a half shrug. Ignorance is the first step to discovery. Besides, if I waited to know everything before I tried, I'd still be figuring out how to use a toaster. I see little value in this toaster, she said. Trust me, Your Majesty, breakfast would disagree. She stopped in front of a pile of scrap metal and lifted a fragment of alien plating between two elegant claws. You repaired my armor, she said softly, and yet you are still a prisoner. Why did you do it? Eli hesitated. Because it was broken. And because no one else was going to. Her violet eyes locked on him. Compassion for an enemy? He exhaled. No. Just habit. Fixing things makes me feel like the universe isn't completely insane. For a long moment, she studied him, this small, fragile creature with oil-stained fingers and too much defiance for his size. Then she said, almost reluctantly, your methods defy logic, but the results speak for themselves. I would understand more. You will instruct me. Eli blinked. You want me to teach you, engineering? Call it curiosity. Call it dangerous, he muttered. Her ears angled forward. What was that? Nothing, Your Majesty. Delighted to share the wonders of human improvisation. Step 1, don't explode. The queen arched a brow but gestured for him to continue. So he did, teaching her about balance, tension, and conductivity, using scraps of alien tech as examples. She absorbed every detail with unnerving focus, occasionally interrupting with questions sharp enough to slice through equations. Hours later, when her guards returned to escort her, she lingered at the doorway. You speak as though machines are alive, she said. Do you believe that? Eli looked at his patched-up drone, which now floated happily nearby. Sometimes, he said. Everything's got a bit of life in it. You just have to listen. Her lips curved ever so slightly. Then perhaps, she said, you will teach me to listen. After she left, Eli sank onto a crate, exhaling a long breath. Yep, he muttered, definitely flirting with the 9-foot death goddess. Great job, Eli. Brilliant survival strategy. The drone beeped reproachfully. Don't judge me, he told it. You'd do it too if she had glowing ears. Outside, the ship drifted through a nebula of silver gas, the light casting soft waves through the corridors. And somewhere deep within the sovereign blade, the alien queen reviewed the readings of her repaired armor, running her fingers along the seamless surface. For the first time in her long reign, she wondered if perfection was really the same as strength. And whether a human could truly teach her the difference. The workshop had begun to look less like a prison and more like a chaotic shrine to bad ideas that somehow worked. Tools hovered in midair under the guidance of magnetic fields, cables hung like metal vines from the ceiling, the air buzzed with energy and a faint smell of scorched optimism. Eli Marin wiped a smear of grease off his cheek and squinted at the small army of drones floating before him in uneven formation. "All right, recruits," he said, pointing with a wrench like a general addressing a very confused battalion. "You're the finest collection of repurposed scrap this side of Alpha Centauri, which isn't saying much, but let's work with what we've got." One of the drones wobbled forward, blinking its lights in protest. Yeah, I know, you're missing a stabilizer," Eli muttered. "You're also missing gratitude. You're welcome, by the way, for the gift of continued existence." He was in the middle of arguing with his mechanical students when the door opened again, without warning, of course, because alien queens apparently didn't believe in knocking. Sarithra entered, regal as ever, her luminous ears glowing faintly against the shadowed corridor behind her. She no longer wore her armor even during inspections, a small but noticeable rebellion against her own tradition. The sight of Eli's drones all spinning in confusion seemed to freeze her for a moment, and then, almost imperceptibly, her lips twitched. "You have created a swarm," she said. "Prefer the term chaotic collective," Eli replied, tossing the wrench onto a table. "They're learning pattern recognition. Eventually, they'll coordinate maintenance tasks without exploding." Her gaze swept over the floating machines, some of which promptly crashed into each other in what could only be described as a clumsy salute. "I see progress is ongoing. Progress is chaos pretending to know what it's doing," Eli said. "Kind of like me." She tilted her head, studying him. "You laugh at your failures. Laughing beats crying," he said with a grin. "And statistically, less messy." The Queen walked deeper into the workshop, examining one of the smaller drones. "These constructs, your design?" "Mostly. I borrowed some of your ship's core tech and, modified it." Her ears twitched. "Modified? You tampered with Dominion systems?" Eli nodded, clearly unbothered. "Yep. But in my defense, I improved them." For a long moment she just stared at him, the kind of silence that could melt lesser men. Then, against all expectations, she exhaled what might have been amusement. "You are fortunate your results continue to justify your existence." "Story of my life," he said. They fell into a rhythm over the next few hours, her asking questions that sounded like challenges, him answering with explanations that made her roll her eyes in disbelief. It was a strange kind of partnership. Sarithra, the conqueror queen, and Eli, the exasperated human engineer, working side by side among half-sentient machines. At one point, while testing a reconfigured plasma stabilizer, a burst of sparks showered the room. Eli instinctively shielded Sarithra with his arm, earning a startled glance. "You presume to protect me?" she asked, almost incredulous. "Force of habit," he said, brushing off a few glowing embers. "I used to work in a garage with really angry robots. Reflexes kinda stick." Her voice softened, just slightly. "Your people built machines to attack you." "Not on purpose," he said. "They just had bad tempers and worse programming." She seemed to consider that for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then, with a flicker of mischief, something he'd never thought he'd see in her, she asked, "And you repaired them anyway?" "Of course. Can't hold grudges against a faulty motherboard." Her laughter filled the chamber, bright and unexpected. The sound startled the drones, who immediately bumped into each other in alarm. Eli grinned. See? Even they like your laugh. The queen composed herself, though her ears still shimmered faintly with amusement. You are unlike any creature I have encountered, Eli Marin. Yeah, he said, I get that a lot, usually right before someone fires me or arrests me. Their laughter faded into a more comfortable silence. For a moment, Eli almost forgot she was an empress capable of erasing entire fleets. She was just a woman, taller, stronger, with eyes that shimmered like nebulae, but still a woman curious about things she'd never needed to understand. After a while, she moved closer to the main console, fingertips brushing across the glowing schematic of her armor displayed on the holoscreen. When you repaired it, she said softly, did you feel it? Eli frowned. Feel what? The pulse, she said, looking at him. The armor is bound to my life force. When you touched it, you touched me. Eli blinked, his usual sarcasm evaporating. That sounds intimate. And terrifying. It was, she admitted. For both of us. For the first time, she looked almost vulnerable. Not weak, never weak, but uncertain. You changed something in it. I can feel its resonance shifting. It no longer obeys as it once did. It listens. Eli rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Machines don't always need orders. Sometimes they just need someone to treat them like they matter. Her gaze lingered on him, her expression unreadable. And do you treat all your machines this way? Only the ones that bite, he said with a crooked smile. Gotta earn my affection. Something flickered in her eyes, something dangerously close to warmth. Perhaps, she said slowly, that is why they obey you. They know you would rather understand them than command them. Eli shrugged, trying to play it off. Or maybe I just talk too much and they give up resisting. She actually smiled then, openly this time, no hesitation. Perhaps, she murmured. Though I suspect it is more than that. Before he could think of a response, an alert blared across the workshop. Red lights flashed, holographic warnings blooming across the air. The ship's AI announced in its cold, mechanical voice, *, power fluctuations detected in subcore reactor 3. *. Eli jumped to his feet. That's on this deck. Sarithra straightened immediately, all traces of humor gone. Explain. The reactor feeds half the ship's systems. If it destabilizes, we'll be painting the stars with our atoms. Then fix it, she said, calm but commanding. Eli grabbed his toolkit. You really like saying that, don't you? Her lips curved faintly even in crisis. It seems effective. As they rushed down the corridor together, alarms echoing and the floor vibrating beneath them, Eli couldn't help but grin. You know, he said over the blaring sirens, this might be the weirdest first date I've ever been on. Sarithra shot him a look that should have frozen his heart. Instead, her ears glowed brighter. If we survive, she said, we will discuss your definition of date. Deal, he said, tightening his grip on the wrench as the reactor doors loomed ahead. And as they plunged into the chaos of the failing core, side by side, the strange partnership between a human mechanic and an alien queen began to forge something far stronger than either of them expected. The low hum of the ship's subcore pulsed through the deck, a nervous heartbeat of energy that threatened to explode with the smallest misstep. Eli crouched before the exposed reactor, cables snaking around him like metallic vines, sparks flickering with every adjustment. Sweat mixed with grease on his forehead, dripping into his eyes as he muttered to himself. Okay, flux compensators, aligned. Magnetic regulators, stubborn but negotiable. And you, he said, poking a small, flickering conduit, you are so getting a stern talking to later. A shadow fell across the glowing panels. He looked up, squinting through the sparks and shadows, and saw her, Queen Sarithra, towering and formidable even without her sacred armor. Her ears glowed faintly in the dim red light, pulsing like bioluminescent signals. She didn't touch anything, she didn't need to. Her presence alone seemed to stabilize the chaos around her, her resonance entwining subtly with the ship's energy flow. "Do you always shout at machines in the face of imminent disaster?" she asked, voice steady but tinged with amusement. Eli shot her a grin. "Nope. Only on days ending in Y. Keeps morale up." She tilted her head, ears flicking in bemusement. "Morale of inanimate objects?" "Exactly," he said. "And humans. Mostly humans." Her lips twitched. Not a full smile, nothing that would give the court gossip fodder, but enough to unbalance him, just a fraction. Eli returned to the reactor, muttering, "If you survive today, we'll have to write a manual, how to stay alive when your boss glows." "You presume familiarity," she said. "Presume wisely," he replied. He adjusted the final resonance coil, watching the plasma arc settle into a smooth rhythm. Sparks no longer jumped unpredictably, the energy flow hummed in synchrony. "There," he said. "Like music, but with more chance of catastrophic failure if you hit the wrong note." Sarithra crouched beside him, her glowing eyes observing the circuitry. "You repaired it without full knowledge of its design. You bypassed safety protocols. You relied on intuition. And a little bit of caffeine," Eli added. Her ears flicked sharply. "Caffeine? It's a human thing. You drink it, feel awake, occasionally become a genius." "Curious." She traced a fingertip along the stabilized conduit, watching the light pulse beneath her touch. "You did not merely repair this. You harmonized it. It obeys you, willingly." Eli paused, wiping soot from his hands. "Machines do what you respect. You'd be amazed what a little understanding can do. Even for things with a tendency to explode. You speak as though you treat the vessel itself as alive." "Yeah," he admitted, "sometimes it talks back. Or at least pretends to, until you figure out what it actually wants." She regarded him silently for a long moment. Then, quietly, she asked, "And if the vessel could feel betrayal, would it forgive you?" Eli blinked. "Depends. You don't hurt it twice. And maybe bring it donuts. Or, whatever humans bring to say sorry." Her ears flicked, glowing a faint violet. "Donuts are small, edible discs of sugar and wheat." "Curious." He shrugged. "It works on humans too. Don't knock it until you've tried it." She stood, straightening, and for the first time Eli noticed her shoulders tense with something other than authority, something heavier. "Your people are fragile," she said. "Yet you confront danger without hesitation. You risk yourself for things you barely understand." Eli glanced at her, wiping grime from his face with a rag. "Fragile is a matter of perspective. Plus, I get bored if I don't risk a little self-annihilation now and then." "You have seen death closely?" she asked. "Yeah," he said lightly, "lots of it. Mostly in the form of short circuits and exploding coffee machines. Not as exciting as space combat, but makes a point." Her ears glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed. "And yet, here you are. Unharmed. Bold, unbroken. Perhaps your kind has merit beyond what I assumed." Eli smiled. "Sometimes survival is about being annoyingly persistent. Works better than armor most days." She studied him, the dim lights casting sharp shadows across her features. "Persistence," she repeated. "A rare quality in this galaxy." Her hand hovered near the conduit, not touching, just sensing the flow. "You have altered the very essence of my armor's resonance. And in doing so, you have touched my life." Eli froze. Not because she said it, but because she said it without accusation, without anger, just fact. "Wow," he murmured. "That's, heavy. And kind of terrifying." "You speak with humor even when confronted with your mortality," she said. "It is, disarming." He wiped his palms on his jumpsuit. "Disarming?" I'll take that as a compliment. I try to keep a good attitude, you know, morale and all that. She regarded him, her ears twitching slightly. You are unlike any human I have encountered. You repair without reverence, yet respect the soul of what you touch. You confront without fear, yet are not reckless. You speak humor in the shadow of death. Eli grinned, though it faltered slightly under her intensity. I do my best. Mostly so people don't vaporize me. For a long silence, they simply watched the reactor's harmonics stabilize, the soft hum filling the space between them. The danger had passed, for now, but something had shifted. The Queen no longer saw him as merely a human mechanic. He was a presence, a force of unpredictability she could neither control nor ignore. Then Eli muttered under his breath, and somehow I still haven't been vaporized. Beat my personal best. She caught it. Your irreverence may yet survive, she said, a faint hint of a smile tugging at her lips. But do not mistake survival for mastery. You are learning still. Yeah, I've got a lot to learn, he said, glancing at the humming reactor. Like how not to get roasted by royalty while fixing alien tech. She lifted her gaze to meet his, violet eyes reflecting the pulsating energy. Perhaps, human, the lesson is not in survival alone, but in understanding. And I am beginning to understand. Eli blinked. Well, that's terrifyingly poetic, Your Majesty. I'll try not to ruin it with sarcasm. She inclined her head, ears glowing softly, as if granting him permission to exist in her world a little longer. You will remain. I wish to see the extent of your ingenuity. And perhaps, to learn something myself. Eli grinned, picking up his wrench. Great. I always wanted a mentor. Just didn't think she'd be 9 feet tall, glow in the dark, and could crush me with her pinky. Her laughter echoed softly in the chamber, faint but genuine, and for the first time, Eli felt like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone in this alien world. The Queen had opened a door, and he was willing to walk through it, wrench in hand, into a future uncertain, chaotic, and somehow strangely promising. The ship's corridors hummed with tension, a low vibration that vibrated in sync with Sarithra's heartbeat. Rumors were circulating among the crew, whispers about the Queen spending hours with a human, about the sacred armor being touched by mortal hands, about the dangerous charm of that small mechanic with grease-stained fingers and too much nerve. For the first time in cycles, the Dominion's warriors were uncertain, and that uncertainty spread like a virus through the ranks. Eli Marin leaned against a bulkhead in the engineering sector, wiping sweat and grime from his brow. The reactor repairs from earlier had barely given him time to breathe before a new alert blared. A coup attempt had ignited within the upper command. Loyalists and traitors clashed silently through the ship's decks, and the Queen's attention was urgently required. He looked up as Sarithra appeared at the far end of the corridor, her battle suit glinting, ears glowing with an intense violet flare. There was no trace of the humor from earlier today, only the lethal, graceful presence of a leader poised on the knife edge of war. Eli, she said, voice sharp, you will accompany me. There is turbulence within my command. I require your assistance. He blinked. Assist, like mechanical assistance, or assist with combat assistance. She raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Both. Your wit may prove more useful than you imagine. As they moved through the corridors, the sounds of chaos grew, the metallic clash of armored combatants, sparks from disrupted conduits, and the faint hum of drones desperately trying to restore order. Eli ducked a swinging plasma baton, muttering, well, that's a Monday. The Queen's soldiers fought with discipline and precision, but the traitors were clever, using electromagnetic pulses to disable internal systems. Eli's mind whirred as he scanned the situation, panels sparking, gravity generators flickering, weapons overheating. He sprang into action, adjusting disrupted circuitry with a practiced hand, recalibrating plasma emitters, rerouting power through emergency conduits. Careful, human. Sarithra warned, deflecting a plasma strike with her elongated forearm. "One misstep and you will vaporize before my eyes." "Relax," Eli said, ducking a swinging leg. "Worst case, I explode spectacularly. Entertainment value included." Her ears twitched sharply, glowing brighter, and she shot him a glance that promised a lecture after survival. "You are audacious." "I prefer efficiently reckless," he replied, ducking another swing. Together, they moved through the chaos like a storm and its eye, Sci-Fi cutting a path with lethal elegance, Eli patching systems mid-conflict, drones swarming in support as he barked orders. His improvisation kept their escape route stable, though each movement carried the risk of death or worse. At one point, a collapsed corridor blocked their path. Eli scanned the crumbling structure. "Well, this is inconvenient," he muttered. "But I have a plan. Trust me, it involves wires, magnets, and me not getting squashed." Sci-Fi raised an eyebrow. "I trust you precisely as far as I can throw you." "Not far. I'm small, lightweight, portable, perfect for tossing, if needed." Her laughter, low and amused, echoed behind the clash of combat, though her focus never wavered. She signaled the drones to stabilize the fallen girders, and Eli rigged a makeshift pulley system with wires and gravity clamps. A spark flew, the metal shivered, and with a final groan, the corridor cleared. They continued onward, reaching a chamber where the traitor captain had cornered several loyalist officers. Sci-Fi's eyes flared with violet intensity as she advanced. Eli hesitated for a fraction, then realized she expected him to act. "Wrench," he muttered, snatching it from his belt. "I think it's showtime." The fight was a blur. Plasma blades, magnetic repulsors, and the tactical use of gravity fields. Eli improvised shields and jammed weapon circuits with surprising effectiveness, earning a glance from Sci-Fi that was, almost approving. Once the traitor captain was subdued, Eli leaned against a wall, panting, wiping grime from his face. "Well," he said, "I didn't die. That's progress." Sci-Fi surveyed the chamber, then the subcommanders. "You see what loyalty looks like?" she asked him. Eli nodded. "Sort of. And disloyalty looks explosive. Fun to watch from a safe distance." Her ears flicked in subtle amusement. "You are irreverent even in battle." "And it works," he said, brushing soot from his jumpsuit. "Trust me, people underestimate humans. Usually a fatal mistake." For a brief moment, the room was still. The drones hummed, the plasma conduits crackled softly, and Sci-Fi regarded Eli as if seeing him fully for the first time, small, fragile, and yet indispensable. "You saved me," she said finally. "When the attack came, you acted without hesitation, without regard for yourself." "I guess," he said modestly. "Someone's gotta keep the royal person from being obliterated. Think of it as civic duty." Her ears glowed faintly again, flickering with emotion Eli couldn't name. "You do not fear me. Nor the consequences. That is, uncommon." "Fear's overrated," he said. "Besides, your face is intimidating enough. Can't waste energy being scared of someone I can't reach." Her violet eyes studied him for a long moment, a quiet intensity in her gaze that made the air itself seem to pulse. "Perhaps there is more to humanity than I understood," she murmured. "Your courage is admirable." Eli shrugged, brushing dust from his jumpsuit. "Courage is just a word humans use to justify panicking creatively." Her lips twitched, almost a smile. "Creativity may yet save this empire, human. And perhaps, save more than yourself." Outside, the rest of the ship buzzed with emergency repairs, alarms, and murmurs of the subdued rebellion. But within this small chamber, in the glow of sparking conduits and exhausted drones, a fragile alliance had solidified, the Queen and the human mechanic, bound by chaos, trust, and the dangerous thrill of surviving where others would perish. Eli slumped against a console. You know, he said, next time we should probably just have tea instead of near-death experiences. She let out a sound, half sigh, half laugh. Tea may not stabilize reactors or repel traitors, but I will consider it. He grinned. Great. I'll start brewing ideas. No promises on the survival odds, though. Her ears flicked, glowing softly, as she turned toward the command deck. And Eli, watching her stride through the chaos like a storm made flesh, realized that for the first time, the Queen did not just tolerate him, she needed him. And somehow, he needed her back. The ship shuddered under the strain of rebellion. Alarms blared in irregular bursts, warning of systems sabotaged, corridors locked, and drones malfunctioning from EMP pulses. Sci-Fi moved through the chaos like a storm incarnate, her battle suit shimmering under emergency lights, ears glowing like twin beacons of violet fury. Eli Marin followed close behind, toolbox in hand, dodging sparks, debris, and the occasional panicked soldier. Okay, new rule, Eli muttered, ducking under a swinging security barrier. If your empire tries a coup again, can we maybe, I don't know, negotiate over coffee instead of plasma weapons? Coffee will not stop betrayal, she said, slicing a plasma blade through a reinforced door. Action is required. Action, got it, he said, juggling a gravity clamp and a makeshift stabilizer. And somehow, we're improvising with half-dead robots. Perfect. They reached the command core, where the traitorous generals had begun rerouting power from the central fusion reactor. Eli immediately began scanning the panels, fingers flying over control interfaces he barely understood. Sparks hissed at his touch, and one of the consoles beeped angrily as if personally insulted. Human, Sci-Fi said, her voice a calm ripple of authority over the chaos. Will you explain your plan before we are vaporized? Eli exhaled sharply. Plan A, scare them with physics. Plan B, if that fails, duct tape and hope. She arched an eyebrow. Duct tape? Metaphorical, he said quickly. Mostly. He began rerouting power manually, realigning energy conduits while the Queen took on the traitors directly, her movements a blur of deadly precision. Plasma bursts hissed around her, hitting walls and floors with a resonance that made the ship shiver. Yet she never faltered. Her ears glowed brighter with every calculated strike, reflecting the intensity of her focus. Eli ducked behind a console as a rogue drone exploded in a shower of sparks near. The ship's corridors hummed with tension, a low vibration that vibrated in sync with Sci-Fi's heartbeat. Rumors were circulating among the crew, whispers about the Queen spending hours with a human, about the sacred armor being touched by mortal hands, about the dangerous charm of that small mechanic with grease-stained fingers and too much nerve. For the first time in cycles, the Dominion's warriors were uncertain, and that uncertainty spread like a virus through the ranks. Eli Marin leaned against a bulkhead in the engineering sector, wiping sweat and grime from his brow. The reactor repairs from earlier had barely given him time to breathe before a new alert blared. A coup attempt had ignited within the upper command. Loyalists and traitors clashed silently through the ship's decks, and the Queen's attention was urgently required. He looked up as Sci-Fi appeared at the far end of the corridor, her battle suit glinting, ears glowing with an intense violet flare. There was no trace of the humor from earlier today, only the lethal, graceful presence of a leader poised on the knife edge of war. Eli, she said, voice sharp, you will accompany me. There is turbulence within my command. I require your assistance. He blinked. Assist, like, mechanical assistance, or assist with, combat assistance. She raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Both. Your wit may prove more useful than you imagine. As they moved through the corridors, the sounds of chaos grew, the metallic clash of armored combatants, sparks from disrupted conduits, and the faint hum of drones desperately trying to restore order. Eli ducked a swinging plasma baton, muttering, well, that's a Monday. The Queen's soldiers fought with discipline and precision, but the traitors were clever, using electromagnetic pulses to disable internal systems. Eli's mind whirred as he scanned the situation, panels sparking, gravity generators flickering, weapons overheating. He sprang into action, adjusting disrupted circuitry with a practiced hand, recalibrating plasma emitters, rerouting power through emergency conduits. "Careful, human," Sarithra warned, deflecting a plasma strike with her elongated forearm. "One misstep and you will vaporize before my eyes." "Relax," Eli said, ducking a swinging leg. "Worst case, I explode spectacularly. Entertainment value included." Her ears twitched sharply, glowing brighter, and she shot him a glance that promised a lecture after survival. "You are audacious." "I prefer efficiently reckless," he replied, ducking another swing. Together, they moved through the chaos like a storm and its eye, Sarithra cutting a path with lethal elegance, Eli patching systems mid-conflict, drones swarming in support as he barked orders. His improvisation kept their escape route stable, though each movement carried the risk of death or worse. At one point, a collapsed corridor blocked their path. Eli scanned the crumbling structure. "Well, this is inconvenient," he muttered. "But I have a plan. Trust me, it involves wires, magnets, and me not getting squashed." Sarithra raised an eyebrow. "I trust you precisely as far as I can throw you." "Not far. I'm small, lightweight, portable, perfect for tossing, if needed." Her laughter, low and amused, echoed behind the clash of combat, though her focus never wavered. She signaled the drones to stabilize the fallen girders, and Eli rigged a makeshift pulley system with wires and gravity clamps. A spark flew, the metal shivered, and with a final groan, the corridor cleared. They continued onward, reaching a chamber where the traitor captain had cornered several loyalist officers. Sarithra's eyes flared with violet intensity as she advanced. Eli hesitated for a fraction, then realized she expected him to act. "Wrench," he muttered, snatching it from his belt. "I think it's showtime." The fight was a blur. Plasma blades, magnetic repulsors, and the tactical use of gravity fields. Eli improvised shields and jammed weapon circuits with surprising effectiveness, earning a glance from Sarithra that was, almost approving. Once the traitor captain was subdued, Eli leaned against a wall, panting, wiping grime from his face. "Well," he said, "I didn't die. That's progress." Sarithra surveyed the chamber, then the subcommanders. "You see what loyalty looks like?" she asked him. Eli nodded. "Sort of. And disloyalty looks explosive. Fun to watch from a safe distance." Her ears flicked in subtle amusement. "You are irreverent even in battle." "And it works," he said, brushing soot from his jumpsuit. "Trust me, people underestimate humans. Usually a fatal mistake." For a brief moment, the room was still. The drones hummed, the plasma conduits crackled softly, and Sarithra regarded Eli as if seeing him fully for the first time, small, fragile, and yet indispensable. "You saved me," she said finally. "When the attack came, you acted without hesitation, without regard for yourself." "I guess," he said modestly. "Someone's gotta keep the royal person from being obliterated. Think of it as civic duty." Her ears glowed faintly again, flickering with emotion Eli couldn't name. "You do not fear me. Nor the corridors of the Sovereign Blade were quiet for the first time in cycles. Emergency lights pulsed gently, drones hummed in low, orderly rhythm, and the scent of ozone had faded to the faint tang of recycled air. Eli Marin wandered through the engineering deck, toolbox in hand, inspecting panels and rerouting minor fluctuations. His jumpsuit was still smudged with soot and grease, but the fatigue on his face was tempered by a strange satisfaction. Today, for the first time, he felt in control of chaos rather than constantly being chased by it. "Hey, R6, he said to the hovering drone, "don't get too cocky. We've had a lucky streak, and luck's a fragile mistress." The drone beeped in what could almost be interpreted as agreement. He glanced up as a soft glow lit the corridor. Sarithra appeared at the end, her ears faintly shimmering like twin constellations, eyes luminous in the dim light. Her battle suit was replaced by a more casual, but still elegant, uniform, signaling that immediate threats had been quelled. She moved with her usual quiet grace, but there was an air of something new, curiosity, perhaps, or the weight of reflection. "You are still here," she said, voice even, though the faint twitch of her ears betrayed a trace of amusement. "I live here now," Eli replied with a grin, "though I didn't bring a toothbrush." "Thought you'd mention it." Her lips twitched. "I find your irreverence persistent. And charming," he added hopefully, ducking a stray cable. Her gaze flicked to the floating panel screens, where system diagnostics displayed a fully stabilized ship. "You have done more than repair machines," she said softly. "You have changed the flow of this vessel, and perhaps the flow of my command. The armor, my presence, the crew, all resonate differently now. Because of you." Eli paused, momentarily humbled. "I just fix things," he muttered. "Machines, doors, reactors, glowing alien queen armor. Little stuff." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but not in anger, more in thought. "You speak of yourself lightly, yet you risked life and limb not once, but repeatedly, for me and for the ship. This is uncommon. Even among your kind." "Well," Eli said, leaning against a panel, "I try to be memorable. Usually ends up with sparks and near-death experiences." She allowed a small smile, subtle, almost hidden, but it transformed the space between them. "And yet, you survive. Perhaps it is not merely luck, but the courage to act where others hesitate." Eli scratched his head. "Courage, or stubbornness. It's a fine line. Honestly, I'd call it chaotic optimism." Her ears flicked, a soft pulse of light. "Chaotic optimism," she repeated, testing the words as if tasting them. "Perhaps there is wisdom in this, human philosophy." They walked through the engineering deck in silence, their steps echoing over the metallic floor. Eli noticed the Queen's gaze lingering on the repaired armor displayed nearby, reflecting soft violet hues onto the walls. "You've looked at that thing more than I have in weeks," he remarked. "It is part of me," she said. "You have touched it, changed it. And in doing so, you have touched me. This is an unfamiliar sensation. Unsettling, yet compelling." Eli swallowed. "Well, it didn't shock me into oblivion, if that counts." Her ears flicked sharply, and for a fraction of a second, her lips curved upward. "You are bold, human. Perhaps recklessly so." "Yeah," he said, "but it seems to work. For both of us, mostly." They reached the main observatory, where the stars spilled like liquid diamonds across the viewport. The ship drifted silently, restored and whole, yet marked by scars of rebellion, repair, and human ingenuity. Eli leaned against the console, eyes tracing constellations he'd never named, while the Queen's gaze followed him. "You are different from what I expected," she said quietly. "Not just in skill, but in spirit. You do not fear the machinery of life or death, nor the expectations of those above you." Eli shrugged. "Fear's overrated. You learn faster if you make mistakes creatively instead of standing still and worrying about failure." Her ears glowed softly, pulsing with an intensity that mirrored the stars beyond. "And yet, you survive. I underestimated your kind." "Glad to be of service," he said, brushing grime from his sleeves. "Though I prefer hands-on learning. Observing is boring." "You have changed my perception," she admitted. "Not only of your species, but of what it means to trust. And perhaps, to respect unexpected allies." Eli smiled faintly, feeling an unfamiliar warmth in his chest. "Trust is earned, Queen. Respect too. I think we've been testing each other's patience a lot." Her eyes softened, her glowing ears flicking in a gentle rhythm. "Yes. Testing, and perhaps, learning." A quiet moment settled over them, punctuated only by the hum of the stabilized ship. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, a reminder of the vast unknown still awaiting them. Eli glanced at the Queen, noting the way her presence filled the room like gravity, commanding yet enigmatic. "So," he said finally, "we survived mutiny, almost exploded half the ship, and I somehow didn't get vaporized. What's next? Tea? Or another near-death experience?" Her eyes glimmered faintly, a soft pulse of violet light. "Perhaps tea. Or perhaps, something unforeseen. The universe is seldom predictable." Eli grinned. "Unforeseen is my specialty. Consider me prepared." For the first time, the Queen allowed herself to stand beside him not as ruler to subject, not as sovereign to mechanic, but as two beings aligned in the fragile balance of trust, respect, and the unpredictable rhythm of life. The sovereign blade drifted silently through the stars, repaired, defended, and alive. And somewhere within its corridors, a small human mechanic and a towering alien queen shared the quiet understanding that their lives, and perhaps their destinies, had changed forever. Eli exhaled, wiping grease from his hands. "Well," he muttered to himself, "not bad for a day's work." Sarithra's ears flicked, glowing faintly, almost as if in agreement. "Not bad, human," she said softly. "Not bad at all." The stars beyond the viewport twinkled like a promise, and for the first time, both felt that the galaxy was wide, dangerous, and full of possibilities they could face together. The sovereign blade drifted silently through the void, its systems fully stabilized, lights dimmed to a gentle hum, and the hum of repaired drones like a soft heartbeat through the ship's corridors. Eli Marin stood in the central workshop, surveying the chaos-turned-order that now filled the space. Tools floated neatly, panels glowed with balanced energy, and the faint smell of ozone had been replaced by something less intimidating, the faint tang of human ingenuity mixed with alien metals. He wiped a streak of grease from his cheek and glanced at the repaired armor displayed nearby, its polished plates reflecting the soft violet glow from Sarithra's ears. "Well," he muttered, "you're officially the most temperamental piece of tech I've ever coaxed into obedience. Congratulations." The Queen appeared silently behind him, moving with that quiet, predatory grace that still managed to unsettle even someone like Eli. "Temperamental?" she asked, one eyebrow raised, ears pulsing faintly. "Polite term for near-sentient nightmares," Eli said with a grin. "You know, armor that screams at you in the middle of the night." Her lips twitched in what could only be called amusement. "It is not merely armor," she said softly. "It carries my essence. You touched it, changed it. And in doing so, changed me." Eli glanced at her, brushing his hands on his jumpsuit. "I just did my job. Mostly. Okay, maybe a bit of improvisation. And a lot of swearing at Sparks." "You swore at Sparks?" Her ears flicked sharply, glowing brighter with curiosity. "Yeah, works wonders for morale. Sparks respected, eventually." A quiet laugh escaped her, a sound alien and yet, strangely human. "You are unlike any human I have encountered, Eli Marin. Bold, reckless, irreverent, yet effective." "Well," he said, leaning against the console, "I figure if I can survive 9 feet of glowing alien judgment every day, I've got resilience covered." Her violet eyes softened, reflecting the glow of the armor and the soft hum of the drones. "You have changed more than machines, more than this ship. You have changed my perception of trust, of courage, and, perhaps even of companionship." Eli blinked. "Companionship?" "Yes," she said simply. "You act without fear, yet not without thought. You confront danger, yet value life. You have earned my respect, human. And more than respect, perhaps something rarer in the Dominion, understanding." Eli felt a warmth in his chest he hadn't noticed before, a subtle shift in how he perceived the vast galaxy outside the viewport. "Understanding, huh? Well, I try. And I guess you taught me a thing or two about leadership. And responsibility. And glowing ears." Her ears flicked, glowing faintly, almost like a pulse of approval. And yet, you have retained your humor. That may be the greatest lesson of all. That one can face the impossible and still choose to smile. He grinned, leaning back. I call it survival strategy. Works better than trembling and whining. Silence settled over the workshop, not the tense silence of danger, but the quiet of things completed and repaired. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, a reminder of the unknown still waiting beyond the ship. But inside, there was order, camaraderie, and a bond forged through chaos, danger, and mutual respect. Eli glanced at the Queen. So, what now? We wait for the next rebellion? Another near-death experience? Or do we finally get that tea I've been talking about? Her ears flicked, pulsing gently, her lips curving into the faintest smile. Tea, and then we decide. There is much to consider, the future of this ship, the safety of my empire, and, perhaps the strange, unpredictable alliance that has formed between human and Queen. Alliance, Eli said, tilting his head. Sounds fancy. I usually just call it surviving together. You have survived much, she said softly. Yet it is not merely survival that matters. It is courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to act when others hesitate. You embody these qualities, human. You are exceptional. Eli chuckled, rubbing his temples. Exceptional is just a polite way of saying I get into trouble a lot. And somehow get out of it. Trouble has a way of finding you, she said. Yet you face it not as a victim, but as a force of creation. And in doing so, you have earned a place beside me. Not merely as a mechanic, but as a partner in understanding and survival. For the first time, Eli realized the depth of the journey he had undergone. From a simple human mechanic thrust into the midst of alien war and intrigue, he had learned courage beyond fear, ingenuity beyond instinct, and the fragile art of trust and respect across species. He had faced danger, rebellion, and the weight of a queen's wrath, and survived, not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, and undeniably changed. He looked at the stars again, taking a deep breath. Well, Your Majesty, he said, I guess we did it. We fixed the ship, calmed the rebellion, and somehow didn't vaporize each other. Her ears flicked, glowing softly. Indeed. And perhaps, human, this is only the beginning. The galaxy is vast, and its challenges are many. But now, you have proven yourself, and so have I, in seeing beyond assumptions, embracing trust, and finding value where I did not expect it. Eli grinned. Then I guess I better start brewing ideas. Tea first, interstellar diplomacy second. And maybe, just maybe, try not to get vaporized again. Her violet eyes glimmered, reflecting both the stars outside and the soft glow of the repaired armor. Perhaps, Eli Marin, the galaxy has finally become a little more predictable, and yet infinitely more interesting. The hum of the ship, the soft blinking of drones, and the calm glow of armor and ears filled the workshop. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, full of danger, discovery, and possibility. Inside, a human and an alien queen stood side by side, changed by their trials, bound by trust, and ready to face whatever the cosmos might bring. Eli wiped grease from his hands one last time, looked at Sarithra, and said with a grin, not bad for a day's work. Not bad, human, she replied, her ears glowing softly. Not bad at all. And for the first time, both felt the rare, quiet satisfaction of completion, the world repaired, chaos managed, and futures, uncertain yet full of promise, waiting to be written together.